Welcome back to the cryptowrld channel, everyone. My name is Josh, and right now the Bitcoin price is trading back inside this triangle pattern, while Binance just halted Bitcoin withdrawals due to the Bitcoin network suddenly getting flooded with new transactions, which I'll talk about in just a moment, so definitely stick around. First of all, we need to talk about this massive Bitcoin news today because, of course, Binance is the largest exchange in the world and they just halted Bitcoin withdrawals at the time of recording this video. But they didn't do it for no reason. Of course, there is a reason behind why they did this, and it's because right now the Bitcoin blockchain is essentially getting flooded with a lot of new transactions all at once. And for those of you who already follow me over on my Twitter, you would know that I actually updated about this over on my Twitter account hours before Binance actually halted withdrawals. And initially, as I said in my first tweet covering this topic, I did actually think it was a possible spam attack on the Bitcoin network because, of course, if you're looking at this from the Bitcoin blockchain, that's pretty much exactly what it looks like. There's a lot of identical transactions which make no sense from the blockchain side other than being a possible spam attack, but there is a little bit more going on here, which I'll talk about in just a moment. But basically, what's happening is there are thousands and thousands of new transactions getting added into the Bitcoin mempool, which is basically where the transactions go when they're waiting to be confirmed onto the blockchain. And a lot of these transactions are all containing 546 Satoshis, which is worth around 16 US cents, about 16 cents worth of Bitcoin. And all of these Bitcoin transactions, while they're sending around 16 cents worth of Bitcoin, they're actually paying around $10, sometimes well above $10 in transaction fees. So that's right, they are sending 16 cents and paying $10+ to actually send that transaction. And remember, there are thousands of these transactions, pretty much identical, happening all at once at the moment on the Bitcoin blockchain. And so you can see why immediately I thought that was a possible spam attack, which is of course possible if you have a lot of Bitcoin, but obviously it's a very expensive attack and one that is not permanent because eventually if you're doing that, you will run out of Bitcoin. And all you really do in the process is just raise transaction fees on the Bitcoin blockchain, which aren't really that big of a deal, especially if it's just temporary. But what's actually happening is instead of someone trying to attack the Bitcoin network intentionally, basically what's happening is a lot of inscriptions happening right now on the Bitcoin blockchain, because right here is a popular method to inscribe files onto the Bitcoin blockchain, and those files can be images, audio files, videos, and they're basically NFTs on Bitcoin. That's essentially what they are. And on top of that, there are now BRC20 tokens, which if you've been around in crypto for a while, you would probably already know about ERC20 tokens, which are essentially tokens or crypto coins running on Ethereum. And up until recently, these tokens could really only run on smart contract platforms like Ethereum or the Binance Smart Chain or Polygon or Solana, for example. But basically, people have now figured out that you can actually do this on Bitcoin with the Taproot upgrade, which happened to Bitcoin around the end of 2021. But it wasn't until more recently that people actually figured out that you can start to inscribe tokens onto Bitcoin and files onto Bitcoin, kind of like having NFTs on Bitcoin and other crypto coins running on top of Bitcoin. So Bitcoin's the base layer, the network that is hosting these other applications, these other coins and files running on top of it. And in order to inscribe these files or inscribe these BRC20 tokens, which basically means creating these tokens or placing these tokens onto the blockchain, you need to submit a Bitcoin transaction to initiate this process. And here on Unisat, to actually make an inscription, the default method is to provide 546 Satoshis or around 16 cents worth of Bitcoin to actually be stored in this inscription. And so this is why there are a lot of transactions sending around 16 cents worth of Bitcoin, or more specifically 546 Satoshis, because those transactions are essentially being used to inscribe files onto the Bitcoin blockchain or to create these BRC20 tokens. And so that explains why some people are willing to send just 16 cents worth of Bitcoin for a $10 transaction fee, because essentially you're sending that into an inscription and creating kind of like another asset on another layer on top of Bitcoin, which then can be sold on a secondary market for potentially a lot more than $10, because right now these BRC20 tokens are booming. In fact, some of these BRC20 tokens are gaining 40, 70%, even up to 400 to 500% gains in just 24 hours. And now, obviously, it is worth mentioning that a lot of these coins, pretty much all of these coins, I would say, are very high risk, high return. They're kind of like meme coins, where basically right now there's a lot of hype and they might be going up a lot right now, but just beware that it is possible for these coins to potentially drop just as fast. But anyway, that's essentially what's happening right now. There's a massive rush into all of these new BRC20 tokens and these NFTs on Bitcoin, because in order to create these extra assets on top of Bitcoin, you're having to send all of these Bitcoin transactions, which right now are essentially clogging up the Bitcoin network. The Bitcoin network is very congested right now, but it is still working as usual. Of course, the Bitcoin protocol is working just fine. You can still use Bitcoin. It's just the fees at the moment are a little higher than what we're used to over the last few months. And that's simply because there's currently a lot more demand to use Bitcoin, to transact in Bitcoin on the base layer. But of course, if you want fast, cheap transactions, you can always transact on a second layer, for example, the Lightning Network. So that is why Binance had to temporarily halt Bitcoin withdrawals, because there was a sharp, sudden spike in withdrawal fees, because obviously, as I just explained, Bitcoin on-chain transaction fees have just suddenly spiked out of nowhere. And because Binance has a fixed Bitcoin withdrawal fee that is relatively low, if they continued processing withdrawals while the actual fees on-chain are currently very high, then of course Binance would be running those withdrawal fees at a loss. They would be processing withdrawals which would need very high fees to actually process, but because they only have a low fixed fee for their Bitcoin withdrawals, they would essentially be running that withdrawal at a loss once again. Either that, or if they did actually put through withdrawals at a low fee underneath what the market is currently showing, then it would have probably taken hours and hours for customers to actually confirm their Bitcoin withdrawal on the Bitcoin blockchain, because a lot of transactions would be waiting ahead of them in the mempool, waiting to be confirmed in the next block. So overall, there's nothing really that bad happening at the moment. There's just the transaction fees that are a little higher than normal, but it's possible once this BRC20 token hype dies down, these transaction fees could possibly return back to more normal levels. And if you're simply just holding Bitcoin in a wallet or on an exchange, this doesn't really affect you at all. It only affects you if you're wanting to transact on Bitcoin on the base layer, which basically means you're having to pay a slightly higher transaction fee at the moment while this is going on. But anyway, now giving you a quick update on the Bitcoin price charts. This is on the daily Bitcoin to US dollar chart, and over the last one day, not a lot has changed here on the daily time frame. So obviously, we are still looking very neutral as of right now on the daily Bitcoin chart, basically in a sideways consolidation range. And of course, the daily Bitcoin RSI and the daily Bitcoin MACD are still showing very low momentum as of right now. So once again, we're still looking very neutral. And now, if you're looking at the 8-hour Bitcoin to US dollar chart, over the last one day, we did see a brief breakout, which turned out to be a fake out because the Bitcoin price failed the retest. So technically speaking, as of right now, at the time of recording this video, with the Bitcoin price back below this line of resistance, that potential price target to the upside and this pattern is not active as of right now. But it's still possible that the Bitcoin price could continue to form this symmetrical triangle pattern and then eventually see another breakout. But remember Remember, we really need to see some strong confirmation, like at least candle closes, but ideally some sort of retest. If we do come back down for a retest, then we need to hold that resistance as new support in order to further confirm the breakout. And of course, the same thing can be said if we see a break below this support. We need to flip that support into new resistance in order to confirm a break to the downside. And in case you're wondering, this line of support is sitting at around 27.4k, and this line of resistance is sitting at around 29.4k. And now if you're zooming into the shorter term, this is on the 4-hour Bitcoin chart, and once again we saw that rejection from this horizontal range of resistance in between 29.8k to 30k, and almost immediately the price of Bitcoin fell straight back into this area of support, which was of course an area of support that I've mentioned over the last 1 to 2 days. But in case you're new to this channel, this area of support is sitting in between around 28.7k to around 29k. But if we actually see a strong break back below around 28.7k, then in that case we would likely see a drop down towards around 28.2k, and if that level breaks, then we would likely see a drop down towards this area of support in between 27.5k to 27.8k. And in terms of the momentum and the trend just in the imminent short term, technically speaking, we're looking slightly more bearish than bullish, because we have recently seen a break to the downside in the 4-hour Bitcoin RSI, which is also forming lower lows and lower highs. So technically speaking, this is a sign of weakness, at least in the shorter term, which basically means I would not be surprised if we do end up seeing a little bit more bearish price action in the short term, or at least some sort of sideways consolidation, basically reduced bullish momentum as of right now. But anyway, now getting into the Ethereum part of this video, this is on the daily ETH to US dollar chart, and over the last 1 to 2 days, we've seen a perfect rejection from this area of resistance, which is sitting in between 1980 to 2040. And once again, if you're looking at the daily Ethereum RSI and the daily Ethereum MACD, these are both looking very neutral in the shorter term relative to the daily time frame, meaning we're still basically in this sideways consolidation that's within a larger bullish trend, because we're still seeing larger higher lows and higher highs on the daily time frame. It's just right now we're basically taking a pause from that bullish trend, kind of like what we saw back here. And now if you're zooming into the shorter term, this is on the 4-hour ETH to US dollar chart, and right now as I'm recording this video, the price of ETH is running into this area of resistance, sitting in between around 1920 to around 1950. And obviously over the last 1 to 2 days, we did end up seeing a further pullback in the price of ETH after that warning signal flashed, which I shared in my last video, basically the 4-hour Ethereum RSI entering into overbought territories for the first time since this previous high, meaning it's likely we're going to see some sort of cool off, at least in the short term, in the price of ETH, which is exactly what we saw. But considering the fact that we have also now seen a break to the downside in the 4-hour Ethereum RSI, forming lower lows and now basically lower highs, this means that technically speaking, we're looking slightly more bearish than bullish, at least in the short term. So I would not be surprised if we do end up seeing a little bit more bearish price action, or at least a sideways consolidation. And as for support, in case we do end up seeing a further pullback, we have this area of support sitting in between around 1830 to 1850, and this level of support at around 1.8k. And now if you want to know how to make a lot of money in crypto, no matter if the price is going to the upside, to the downside, or simply chopping around sideways, then make sure to watch these videos popping up right here on your screen. The video in the top left shows you how to make money if the price is going either up or down, and the video in the bottom left shows you how to make money if the price is chopping around sideways. But anyway, that's everything that I have to say for today. I really hope you enjoyed, and I'll see you all in the next video.